Okay, so here we are. Dokken's Back for the Attack album. Now, I'd just like to say right up front, this was a pretty great album to listen to in 1987, and an album that a lot of people absolutely love and still praise to this day. For many of those people, including some of you, this may even be your favorite Dokken album or one of your favorite albums, period. For my part, I think it's definitely understandable if you feel that way. I wouldn't even argue with you. Like I said, it's a pretty great album, especially in 1987. It's a pretty great album today for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is the fact that we had no idea at the time just how lucky we were to get it at all. And if you know anything about this band, you know that there's a lot more to talk about there. Don Dokken and Lynch famously did not get along from the very start, which we'll talk about again in our next video a little bit. And as we all know now, they couldn't even work together in the studio, basically existing at the same time within the band, only on stage during performances. For more on all that, I recommend the November 2022 Ultimate Classic Rock article, How Dokken Fell Apart Making Back for the Attack by Gary Graff. I'll put the link to this article in the description, of course, like I always do. And I'm going to refer back to it many times during my discussion on this album. One of the things it makes mention of, importantly, is the set of difficult circumstances involved in the making of this album. According to the article, because of Dokken's heavy touring schedule, the group recorded Back for the Attack episodically with producer Neil Kernon over several months, both together and separately at a variety of Los Angeles area recording studios. Now, a lot of bands have had to record albums episodically before, so it's hardly unique to Dokken, but I would argue that it almost always sucks because episodically is no way to do much of anything, if you ask me, as it makes maintaining focus challenging at best. But of course, we can all probably guess that in Dokken, the difficulties didn't end there. Again, from the Ultimate Classic Rock article, the Melodic Hard Rock Quartet's fourth album, which was released on November 2nd, 1987, came out riding a wave of great momentum. Its predecessors had each done better on the charts and at the cash register, and Dokken ruled rock radio with songs like In My Dreams, The Hunter, Breaking the Chains, and Into the Fire. Now, I don't know, ruled rock radio is probably a little bit of an overstatement to be sure. But anyway, moving on. Just in front of Back for the Attack, the group scored again with Dream Warriors, the title theme for Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. All of that would help propel Back for the Attack to Dokken's highest position on the Billboard 200, number 13, and their quickest ride to platinum status with an album, which just might be the most depressing part of this whole Dokken experience, of course. The fact that we'd all been rooting for them, only to finally see them build what did look like a little true momentum at last, just in time to piss it all away by, well, Ultimate Classic Rock does a pretty fair job of explaining it, so I'll let them. It was very, very tense, the making of that record, said bassist Jeff Pilson. We went into the album less organized than we were on Under Lock and Key, less together. There were a lot of drugs happening by this point, and it was just not a very healthy scenario. There was a lot of dissension going on in general, and in the recording studio, it wasn't much better. Now, I don't know about anyone else here, but I don't remember ever thinking of Dokken as one of the drugged out bands from that time. I had no idea anything like that was going on. But apparently that was the case. And I mean, to hear Don Dokken tell it in his recent Full in Bloom interview, these other guys were coked up practically all the time from the recording of Tooth and Nail on. In fact, Don told Martin Popoff he believed the band members' drug use, especially cocaine, prolonged these recording sessions and detracted from the focus on the material. Either way, according to Ultimate Classic Rock, an internal battle was certainly raging inside Dokken at the time in the form of a growing schism between Don Dokken and Pilson, Lynch, and drummer Wild Mick Brown. The latter three were living in Phoenix while Dokken was still in Los Angeles and feeling isolated. That's when things started with, "I don't want Don in the studio," Dokken told Popoff. "I submitted my songs from my house and they learned them, and I wasn't even around for rehearsals." Lynch and Pilson say they understood Dokken's feelings, but also contend that he was deliberately keeping a distance from them for reasons that became clear later. But while much has been made of the creative push and pull between Dokken and Lynch, usually refereed by Pilson, the article continues, both claim that there was never outright rancor or animosity. "We're two different people, George and I," Dokken told Ultimate Classic Rock in 2016. "I don't hate him and he doesn't hate me. I don't believe in hating. George and I were just very different people, and there was tension from the day we started playing together. It was very rough." Dokken, the others recall, was also miffed that Back for the Attack lacked a showcase ballad, even though he had presented one to the band. "It kind of got nixed because we didn't think it was good enough," Pilson says. He was upset, understandably so. The song eventually became Walk Away, the studio bonus track on 1988's Beast from the East live album. With Dream Warriors paving the way and the next single, Burning Like a Flame, charting even higher, Back for the Attack came out with the vengeance its title suggested. But just a couple of days before the album's release, on Halloween night in Providence, Rhode Island, while opening for Aerosmith, everything crashed. We had a meeting and Don said, "I want to leave." Pilson says the group spent the next several months trying to talk him out of it. But by the time the band hit the road on Van Halen's Monsters of Rock tour during the summer of 1988, the end was near. And so, as everyone here probably already is well aware, Dokken was done. They released the double live album Beast from the East and then literally walk away. But before that, we get Back for the Attack, the Dokken studio album that apparently a lot of Dokken fans had been waiting for all along, whether they knew it at the time or not. I say that because it gets more and more obvious over the years that the people who really love this album really love this album. I love the album too. I'd take Back for the Attack over many other 80s hard rock and metal albums, in fact. Neil Kernon comes in again to produce, in full this time, after co-producing under Lock and Key, and on the surface, it seems to have had great results. This is a pretty tight-sounding album, with a lot of quality tunes and some truly great performances throughout. And Neil Kernon had some pretty good credits before this one, to be sure. Judas Priest's Unleashed in the East, Hall & Oates' three biggest albums from 1980's Voices through 81's Private Eyes and 82's H2O, as well as Autograph's Sign In Please and Queensryche's Rage for Order, to name only a few. He'd also done the Scorpions' Love at First Sting single mixes in '84, which I think you'd have to say performed pretty damn well. And it didn't take long to feel positive vibes from this album either. I really like this cover. I think most people did. It's just a cool image. And the band's own image had definitely calmed down a bit for this album's release, too. Gone were all the super fancy, shiny, colorful uniforms of awesomeness that they had adopted for the Under Lock and Key album photos. And I remember the images we saw in the magazines to usher in this era of the band were just much, much cooler. The guys looked great. The hair was more reasonable. The clothes were cool and dignified. As for the album itself, of course, just like anything else with this band, opinions from within seem to vary. Ironically, though, Dokken and Lynch seem to almost agree. I was initially not happy with it at all, actually, Lynch told Ultimate Classic Rock. I thought it was too dry. We were coming off Under Lock and Key, which is a majestic sounding record, and we were very, very hands on. Back for the Attack didn't sound like that. I wasn't sitting behind the mixers insisting on adding everything but the kitchen sink like we did on Under Lock and Key. So I was disappointed at first. But that's just one man's opinion. Most people love it, and I think it stood up better over time because of that drier sound. I don't think it's a very good album, Dokken told biographer Martin Popoff. I think there were 2 or 3 good songs, which were the singles, and there was a lot of filler. It's a long album, and there's a lot of masturbatory guitar playing. Okay, and that brings me straight to my next point. It's a long album. But to talk about that, we've got to take a closer look at the times in which the album was created. If you're roughly the same age as me, and I'm in the last few months of what I think most people would probably call my early 50s. God, did I really just say that?
Holy shit!
Then you probably remember things pretty similarly to the way I do. And what I remember is that in the 70s and the first half of the 80s, albums in this genre of music were typically going to be constructed of 8, 9, or 10 songs at best. All 3 of Dokken's albums before this one had 10 tracks. Most Kiss albums had 9 or 10 songs all through their history in the 70s and early 80s. The Rat albums were all 10 songs in the 80s. The Motley Crue albums were pretty much 10 songs up through Girls, 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 while bands like Maiden and Sabbath would often have albums with closer to 8 because some of their songs were much greater in length, as they weren't exactly aiming for even the remote possibility of radio airplay like so many of these other bands were hoping for as the LA metal scene took off in the mid-80s. Anyway, all that changed in early 1987, and not necessarily for the better. Now, after what I'm on record on this channel as saying were, to me, the somewhat disappointing 1985 and 86, following those first 5 years of the 80s, which I consider to be possibly the greatest era in music history, particularly in 1983 and 84, even I have to admit, some of the biggest and best albums in a long time are released in 1987. And other than Motley's Girls, Girls, Girls album, they all have pretty much one thing in common. They're longer. Now, Motley released Girls, Girls, Girls on May 15th, 1987. Faster Pussycat released their debut album on July 7th, and it was also 10 songs in length. So I'm going to go ahead and just say that this was something of a new trend that was started not long after that. Now, earlier that year, we'd gotten one of my favorite Prince albums, Sign of the Times. which was a double album, 16 tracks. That came out on March 30th. Then, as the year rolls on, we get Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, 12 tracks, July 20th. Def Leppard's Hysteria, 12 tracks, August 17th. Aerosmith's Permanent Vacation, 12 tracks, August 24th. And then even Kiss's Crazy Nights, which is released September 21st, has 11 tracks. Although, in typical Kiss fashion, I'm guessing they were just a couple of years behind in their thinking, which left us waiting until 1989 for that 15-track bar of nutty goodness we all know now as Hot in the Shade. But that was something we couldn't see coming just yet. Either way, if we go just by those dates, then it appears the trend of longer albums actually began with Appetite for Destruction. But if I'm being honest, I simply don't remember it that way. It was almost a full month later, but in my mind at least, it was Hysteria that kicked off this whole obsession with more tracks per album. I'm sure I'm not the only person here who can remember all those hype stickers they plastered on Hysteria telling us how it was 12 songs and over an hour of music. And I don't remember thinking about how many songs were on Appetite at all. With Appetite, I just remember thinking, oh my God, another great song, and another, and another. And are any of these songs not going to be awesome? And that's sort of the whole thing with these longer albums, isn't it? You get 8 or 9 or 10 songs on an album, and there are just better odds that the ones you get are going to feel like the cream of the crop. You get 12 or 15, obviously there's a much better chance that some crap is going to work its way into the mix. At least that's how I've always seen it. And I have to say it, that's how these albums always seem to me, with the exception of Appetite, which, to me at least, has no weak spots. But I've always felt like Hysteria has at least 2 songs too many, maybe 3. And I could even name those for you, but I may want to review that album at some point, so I'll resist the urge for now. I would definitely say the same thing about almost every other one of these albums, and I'll even throw in stuff like Dr. Feelgood and New Jersey too, which came out in the next 2 years. More than 10 songs? Sure. But more than 10 incredible songs? No, not really. Anyway, then of course, on November 2nd, 1987, we get Dokken's 13-track Back for the Attack. Will I say the same about it? I guess it's time to find out. Now, right up front, I'm just going to go ahead and say, I know I don't usually count instrumentals, but what I really don't count is instrumental intros. Without Warning is an intro to the song Tooth and Nail. Mr. Scary is a song that just doesn't happen to have a vocal. So I am going to rate it like I would any other song.
Oh boy, is this great!
Great riff, great solo, great vocal. Stellar vocal, actually. George is absolutely incredible all over this album, as he is on all the others. But this album really seems to feature George above everything else. At least that's how I've always seen and heard it. I mean, he is just all over every moment on this album. And in 1987, that definitely seemed to be what people wanted. Don't forget, this was sort of the height of 80s guitar hero mania, where almost everything in this genre was about what the guitar player could do. And you could pick up any of the rock mags and find not only photos and interviews featuring your favorite hard rock and metal bands, but also ads for guitar courses and books and cassettes and stuff on every other page. I mean, I was an aspiring guitarist from early 1984 on, and I was starting to develop a bad case of guitar hero fatigue in ways by this point. My only real point being that this was prime George Lynch time in the world of Dokken. And this album definitely does not disappoint on that front.
Just your own way of placing the blame on me. Stop thinking that it's all in vain. You keep trading your love for pain. Someday an answer will come, 'cause there ain't no way to escape. Baby, I'm a prisoner. Oh, chained by love.
Probably my early favorite from the album, possibly still my favorite of the proper album tracks. I'm not really sure what else to say about this one, just that I love it and always have.
It's bad enough being under control. Same thing every day. Late at night, there's a place we can go where nothing can stand in the way. I can keep it away, not living for the day. So baby, can't you see we're living night by night? It's just you and me, living night by night.
Okay, this is the first of the 4-star tracks on the album that could totally be 5 stars, but for some reason I just can't quite get there. It's totally a great song, great attitude in spots. And I almost went with 5 stars at the last minute because I do think it's really awesome. But I had to deduct a star because while I love listening to it, 10 minutes later, I somehow just seem to completely forget it exists or that I just heard it. And that's just not a 5-star song sort of thing. But man, what a nice tune. And as usual, a fantastic solo.
He felt this way before and knew he wanted more. He knew the dawn would come and he'd be on the run. But still it drove him on like a loaded gun. His time was running out, and then he realized that he'd been it before. Like a scream in the night, for his crime they showed no pity. Even though they'd done the same, it's a way of life in the city, standing in the shadows.
It's really cool. I've just never loved it as much as some of these other songs. Just like Night by Night, if you give this song 5 stars, I have absolutely no problem with that at all. I'm about as close as I can possibly get to agreeing. I just didn't quite do it.
There seems no justice when you fall in love. It gives you blindness when you are the one that's hurting, 'cause they've got the gun. There seems no justice when you fall in love. Save me, don't let me fall. Heaven sent, I heard the call. Stop me, don't let me go. Touch my heart and let me know. Heaven sent, thought you would set me free.
Okay, second single from the album, if you don't count Dream Warriors as the first, which I'm not because it was a single and it's on the album, yes. But it was a single for the movie Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and came out 9 months before the album was released. And then the band just decided to go ahead and put it on here because it was popular and they thought it would help with sales. This track also got a music video, of course, which I never saw or even knew about until many years later for some reason. It's a great song, terrific, but I only gave it 4 stars. As seems to be the case with the 4-star tunes here, I don't know exactly how to explain that. They could totally be 5, but it's just how I seem to feel. Yeah, 5 stars. Duh. And I got to see them perform this track live on that Monsters of Rock tour in 1988. And it was just amazing to witness. I don't know exactly how he pulled that off live, but he did. And they did. And it was positively astounding. Okay, now we move to side 2 of the album.
Yeah, I'm leaving today. Sorry's not enough. Like so many things, we were lost forever. I can't turn the hands of time back to the way it was. I can only go on to find a better road. I can't stop you now. My back's against the wall. There's only so many tears you can cry. There's only so many ways you can say goodbye. Only so many tears you can cry.
This was the album's 3rd and final single, but no music video for some reason. I gave it 5 stars, just because I love hearing Don wallow in self-pity, of course, and because I think the music and the vocal melody are really cool. And yeah, now that sounds like a Dokken lyric. Don being abused in love again and again and again, and he's run out of tears and it's horrible, and poor Don. Speaking of which, I guess it's time to do this. I'm thrilled to say that I had an amazing opportunity recently to interview one of my heroes, lead singer, and just a damn handsome man, Don Dokken. Now, Don and I actually filmed this last week for my Under Lock and Key review, which you'll be able to tell from my clothes and the background. But I had to cut it from that video because it was already getting a bit long. And apparently people don't have a lot of time for long-winded tangents by morons from a bygone age who don't know when to shut up. Now, this interview gave me a chance after all these years to finally ask Don some more of the stupid, annoying kind of questions that, as you saw in the last video, I tried to ask him when we first met back in 1986, including, this time, a conversation about all these breakup songs. And if you're wondering what it takes to arrange an internet interview with Don Dokken, the answer is apparently at least 1 million viewers and about $5. Neither of which I have, so that's why you get this instead. So, ladies and gentlemen, and the people who actually watch these videos, it's my honor to present for your entertainment,
Holy shit!
my interview with Don Dokken. Hey, Don, how are you doing? Hey, David, I'm okay, thanks. It's nice to be here. You said the channel has over 1 million viewers, is that right? Oh, yeah, sure does. Wow, that's really impressive. How'd you get that kind of audience? Oh, geez. I'm not sure, really. It's almost like I just made it up in my head or something, just imagined it, and there it was. I'd like to start by asking you about the albums you did with the classic lineup, if you don't mind. Tooth and Nail, Under Lock and Key, Back for the Attack. I'm sure you never get tired of talking about those, right? No, I don't really want to talk about that shit again, David. I've talked about that for like the last 40 years. It's a dead horse at this point, you know what I mean? That version of the band doesn't exist anymore. Let's think of some new topic I haven't already gone over 1 million times, please? Really? But that's kind of what I wanted to... You got any other questions? How about this? Are there any questions you used to wish they'd ask me in the rock mags back in the day that they never asked? Why don't you ask me one of those? Wow, that's actually a really great idea. Yeah. Oh, I know. How about all those really pervy songs you guys wrote for the first album, like Felony and Young Girls and Can't Wait to Frame My Original Scorpions Virgin Killer album cover? No, nobody wants to talk about that, David. No, nobody. Let's move on. Okay. I did do a little math once with your songs. My friends and I used to joke sometimes about how nearly every song Dokken did on those classic albums seemed to be some horrible breakup story, and you'd have to have the worst relationship history of any person ever in the history of the planet. Can we talk about that? Yes. Really? Yes, I'd love to talk about that. Nobody ever seems to want to let me talk about that in an interview. I'd love to talk about that. Why don't we do that? Okay. I thought it might be fun to look back and figure up the percentage of songs on the classic lineups albums that were breakup songs, because it's obviously some obscenely high number and should be positively ridiculous material for this video for your million subscribers, right? What are you insinuating, Don? That if this doesn't go well, we may have to re-examine our relationship. Oh, okay. I'm going to name the album, and then I'll name the titles of the breakup songs, and you just comment if you have any thoughts on those songs. Okay? Okay, first, the Breaking the Chains album. Breaking the Chains, In the Middle. You would think In the Middle might be a pretty happy song. Being in the middle. Felony, I Can't See You, Young Girls. Wait, Young Girls isn't a breakup song. That's actually a pretty happy relationship that's going to end with you in prison. Oh. Paris is Burning. The Tooth and Nail album. Just Got Lucky, Heartless Heart, Into the Fire, Alone Again. The Under Lock and Key album. Unchain the Night, The Hunter. Wait, that's not a bad relationship song. Well, it's certainly not a good one. Right. Okay. I'm going to give you that one. In My Dreams, Slipping Away, It's Not Love, Jaded Heart, Don't Lie to Me, Till the Living End. Holy shit, that's a lot. I never realized. Back for the Attack album, Kiss of Death, Prisoner, Heaven Sent, So Many Tears, Stop Fighting Love, Cry of the Gypsy. You can't count that one. I thought that for a while too, but the whole thing is about how bad you want to get away because you've got the Cry of the Gypsy. That's a good relationship for the other person? Oh, wow. I should probably call her and apologize. Maybe. Sleepless Nights. Sleepless Nights? Your Shot in the Dark Put a Hole in My Heart? Oh, well, I didn't write that one, so. And then, finally, as a bonus song, the very last tune you guys did together before the initial breakup from the Beast from the East album, Walk Away. Okay. So, that's 26 crappy relationship songs out of 43 total studio tracks that actually made the albums, which equals an incredible 60.4% of the classic Dokken songs being about sucky interpersonal relations. Imagine that. And an absolutely stunning 80% of the songs on Under Lock and Key. Wow. What are you trying to say? I just think that's a little excessive, don't you? Look, David, I just don't think I can hang out with you anymore. It's not you, it's me. It's just not working for me. Are you breaking up with me, Don? Yep, sure am. You mean I could become a Dokken song? I don't think so. Oh, the drama.
Never thought our love would last for so long. Time and time and again, I thought that you would be gone. Still we kept love hanging on. I guess it's meant to be that your heart still burns.
Okay, and now we finally get to the first single from the album, again, because I'm not counting Dream Warriors. And I remember the band sort of making a big deal about how this actually wasn't a breakup song, but rather a happy love song about a successful relationship. And even they seemed to be completely shocked that they'd written one of those somehow. And I don't know, maybe it's just me, but if one of the things that has you super excited as a band trying to promote your newest album is the fact that it includes a song that isn't about a breakup, maybe you ought to re-examine how often you sing about the same thing. I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong. That said, though, how weird was it to hear them sound this positive for the first time back when you heard this song for the first time? Kind of crazy, right?
When the sun fades to black and the night is calm, there's a will to survive that's ruled by the dawn. There's a fear in your eyes and a dream that was lost. There's a hand of fate left to die on the cross. You never really had a chance. Did my atmosphere tear it down? All of your light grows cold when you're lost behind the wall.
Okay. And now, for some reason, we get to hear Dokken sing about the wall. And it's a pretty cool song, too. I'm just not sure what to think when I listen to this album sometimes, though. I mean, other than the breakup stuff, which there's apparently just no avoiding with these guys, these lyrical topics are kind of all over the place, right? And if I'm being totally honest, that's one of the minor issues I seem to have with this album. It's a fabulous collection of songs. The band sound amazing, particularly Don and George, but the focus just feels a bit scattered to me. It's always just felt like I'm being bounced around like a pinball between songs about horrible breakups to songs about AIDS and walls and gypsies and Freddie and whatever Standing in the Shadows is about. And honestly, as awesome as it all is, it also kind of feels like a band just trying to sound awesome on every track when they really just don't seem to know what they want to say anymore. And I guess that's why I gave this track, like some of the others, 4 stars instead of 5, because I'm just not sure what I'm supposed to be doing with all of this stuff. I mean, I definitely applaud the effort, and I'm not complaining about them trying some different topics. I'm just not entirely sure I believe half of it. It could just be me. Back to 5 stars on this one. And it's simply a case of how much I enjoy hearing it for some reason. Fantastic melodies, and I love the lyrics and all the music. At the same time, I can totally see someone saying they'd give one of the other songs that fifth star instead of this one. I totally get that. I just didn't feel that way myself.
Sometimes, yeah, I feel so alone. I don't mind. As long as you don't close me in, everything will be just fine. Don't tell me about society. Don't wanna hear anymore. I got my own cross to bear, and it's a heavy load. Sometimes I'm feeling that I just wanna get out. Must be a reason that I just wanna shout. Must be the gypsy.
Okay, and now we get to the low point of the album for me, although it's not that low. I only gave this track 3 stars. It's perfectly fine. That's about it. It just never really does anything for me either way. It's kind of fillery in my opinion.
I stay up all night until the morning. Stay in bed till day becomes night. I've been so abused, even more confused. I wish I could make it right. Looks like a sleepless night coming my way. Yeah, I knew that I'd be feeling this way on a sleepless night. I got a restless mind on a sleepless night.
What a great riff. I remember it made my friends and I really happy when they went into this song at Monsters of Rock. Definitely one of my favorites on the album. I wonder how much of that is a result of these lyrics just being kind of fun. We didn't really get that from these guys very often, did we? And I love that bridge.
Listen to the music. Try to leave your troubles out behind. Wide awake, lying on the bed. Can't find no peace of mind because it's so hard to unwind.
Man, that's great.
I lie awake and dread the lonely nights. I'm not alone. I wonder if these heavy eyes can face the unknown. When I close my eyes, I realize you cannot wait. I'm standing in the night alone forever. Together, oh, with a dream for
Okay, 5 stars, right? Gosh, we were so excited that Dokken was getting a song on this soundtrack back when the movie was coming out and we first heard that. I remember going to see that movie in the theater, which I didn't usually do for the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, but I went purely because Dokken was getting a bit of a big break and I wanted to be there to hear it. Of course, they didn't play it in the film until the final credits. I guess that was fine, but unfortunately, it also meant that almost none of the other people in the theater actually got to hear the song because by the time it started, they were already on their way out the door. All right, so that's a total of 58 stars divided by the 13 tracks. which equals a total rating of 4.46 stars. And that brings us to what is finally the part of the video where I tell you that my favorite song on Back for the Attack is the song that wasn't on Back for the Attack.
Back for the attack, easy loving. It will be as easy as you thought it'd be. You give it to me. All or nothing. The cards are on the table. No one plays for free. It's just you and me. Can't keep waiting for you. All right. All right. You're in trouble, 'cause I'm back. Back for the attack. Now I'm back.
And of course, I didn't bother to rate this song for inclusion in the final numbers on the album review because that would be cheating. But if I had, it would have gotten 5 stars, of course, because it's awesome and I love it. So naturally, why would they want to actually include it on the album, right? That would just be stupid. But thankfully, at some point in 1987 or so, I was lucky enough to find the Dream Warriors cassette single. Remember those? Which included, as you might have guessed, Dream Warriors, and also had Back for the Attack and Paris is Burning. Back for the Attack was apparently recorded during the sessions for Under Lock and Key and then finally included as a bonus track on the 2009 remastered Rock Candy edition of this album. Also, as I mentioned earlier, Don was miffed that the ballad Walk Away was rejected from the final track listing on this album. And I guess it went through significant rewrites before inclusion on Beast from the East the next year. But I also would have given that song 5 stars on this album, in case anyone's wondering. So that could have been not one, but 2 more 5-star songs, which would have moved this album into second place above Under Lock and Key for me with 4.61 total stars, had that happened. And on a side note, people, somebody got on here and basically attacked me recently over my scoring of the tracks on one of the albums I reviewed a long time ago because they apparently thought I was rating it really low. And I had to try to explain to them that my top score is 5 stars, not 10, which they apparently just couldn't seem to figure out without a little help. Now, I get it. We've got a lot of new reviewers coming on board at times, and I bring this up only to catch all the newer folks up who might not have watched my earlier videos yet where I explained how I do things. So yeah, anyway, this album gets 4.46 out of 5 possible total stars, which means it comes in just behind Under Lock and Key, which came in just behind Tooth and Nail, which seems just about right to me. But either way, if you feel differently, as I feel like I now have to say nearly every time I make a video, please understand that my opinions are not an attack on your opinions. I'm not saying any of my thoughts are some kind of law that the world has to abide by. And remember, I'm just a boy staring at a camera, telling it my own truth about some of the albums I've loved my entire life, even though I can sometimes criticize them, even as I'm trying to tell them how much I love them. And I can't honestly think of a more perfect way to end a Dokken album review with a complicated, difficult, impassioned story of love and betrayal and the aftermath of sharing and inflicting pain on the thing you supposedly love so very, very much. Oh, by the way, Dokken released this on November 7th, 1988, and then officially announced their breakup in March of 1989. Of course, they got back together for a couple more albums 5 years later, not to mention the absolutely awesome One Live Night, mostly unplugged album. But hey, who's counting? See you next time with our Star Wars prequel video, so to speak, Breaking the Chains.
Just walk away.